Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and a very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dr. Hina Shahid from Pakistan Institute for Conflict and Security Studies, Islamabad. Before we begin, I would like to request the stage group to please come and take their seats at the stage. I would like to request Major General Muhammad Saad Khatak Sahab, Chairman, Pakistan Institute for Conflict and Security Studies, to please come on the stage. Mr. Jens Westerland, Mathesian, Special Consultant, Royal Defense College, to please come on the stage. Mr. Abdullah Khan, Managing Director, Pakistan Institute for Conflict and Security Studies. Mr. Guldad, Director Research, Pakistan Institute for Conflict and Security Studies. And Ambassador Asif Durrani is going to join us shortly at the stage, Pakistan's former Special Representative for Afghanistan. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Pakistan Institute for Conflict and Security Studies, Islamabad, and Royal Danish Defense College, I am greatly honored and pleased to welcome you all to this book launch post-August 2021, Taliban, Governance, Security Dynamics, and the Road to Stability in Afghanistan. For a formal and blessed opening of this event, we would start the proceedings with the recitation of Holy Quran. I would request Mr. Ahmed Zaki to please come on the stage for the recitation of Holy Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نون والقلم وما يسطرون ما أنت بنعمة ربك بمجنون وإن لك لأجرا غير ممنون وإن لك لأجرا غير ممنون فستبصر ويبصرون بأيكم المفتون إن ربك هو أعلم بمن ضل عن سبيله وهو أعلم بالمهتدين فلا تطع المكذبين صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakallah. It is indeed my pleasure to welcome the honorable national and international dignitaries, esteemed guests, colleagues, and distinguished experts on the subjects who have joined us today for this important book launch focused on the pressing issue of terrorism. Respected audience, I would now request Major General Muhammad Saad Khatak, Chairman, Pakistan Institute for Conflict and Security Studies, for the opening remarks. Sir, please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ambassador Ayaz Wazir Sahab, Excellencies, General Officers, distinguished guests, respected colleagues, dear friends, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. It's my privilege to welcome you all to the launch of the book post-August 2021, Taliban, Governance, Dynamics, Security, and the Roads and Stability in Afghanistan, the Road to Stability in Afghanistan. This important work is a collaborative effort of Pakistan Institute for Conflict and Security Studies and the Royal Danish Defense College. This partnership exemplifies the strength of institutional collaboration in addressing complex security issues and geopolitical challenges, particularly during this critical time for Afghanistan and its surrounding region. I would like to offer My sincere congratulations to the esteemed authors, Mr. Guldad Saab, Abdullah Khan Saab, and James Matheson, for their exceptional dedication, commitment, expertise in producing this very important work. I would especially like to recognize the efforts of our Director Research, Mr. Guldad Saab, who was the project director and who played a pivotal role in making this happen, what we are going to launch today. This collective effort, dedication and hard work of all the authors and contributors, for which they truly deserve commendation, has resulted in a thorough analysis that will undoubtedly enhance the ongoing dialogue on Afghanistan's future. At PICS, we take pride in our expertise in field research, strengthened by our collaboration with the academia, policymakers, security analysts, and other stakeholders. As we celebrate our 10th anniversary this October, making a decade of dedicated service since our formation, PICS formation, in October 2014. We invite you to join us in commemorating this milestone with a cake-cutting ceremony, inshallah, at the end of today's proceedings. PICS specializes in conducting rigorous, in-depth field research, making it a trusted partner for various research and advocacy initiatives. Our network positions us to address complex challenges with a deep understanding of underlying causes of conflict, insecurity, and instability. Over the years, PICS has focused on analyzing security trends and offering actionable recommendations that bridge academic knowledge with practical policy making. Our mission is to deliver policy-relevant research that promotes peace, stability, and security in the conflict-affected areas. By engaging actively with both policymakers and communities, we aim to find constructive solutions to pressing issues, this book being a testament to this fact. Ladies and gentlemen, this book offers new insights into the evolution of Taliban, their security apparatus and challenges, and their interaction with the neighboring countries. It provides a detailed analysis of their state-building efforts and contribute to the broader discourse on Afghanistan's future, particularly in the context of regional stability and international engagement. Now, before I conclude, I would like to extend a special welcome to our chief guest, Ambassador Asif Durrani Saab, Pakistan's former representative for Afghanistan. His extensive experience and insight into Afghanistan's geopolitical landscape makes his presence particularly significant for this occasion. I would also like to welcome Ambassador Ayaz Wazir, who was Pakistan's ambassador to Afghanistan in no less challenging period. I also warmly welcome the esteemed delegation from the Royal Danish Defence College, the members of the diplomatic community, academia, intelligentsia, security analysts, and all of you for joining us today. Your participation underscores the importance of institutional, intellectual, and international collaboration in addressing critical issues facing Afghanistan and the region. I hope this book serves as a valuable resource for all of us as we continue to engage with Afghanistan's evolving dynamics and work together towards a more secure and peaceful future. With that, I formally welcome you to this event and invite you to join us in celebrating the release of this important book. Let us take this opportunity to engage in meaningful discussions, share insights, and most importantly, contribute to the collective goal of promoting peace, understanding in our country and the region, and of course, beyond the region. I thank you very much.
Thank you, General Saad. To elaborate further about this institutional collaboration between Pakistan Institute for Conflict and Security Studies and Royal Danish Defence College, Now, I would like to request Mr. Jens Westerlin Mathesian, Special Consultant, Royal Danish Defence College, to please share his insights about the books with the audience.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, very good to see so many of you here today, generals, ambassadors, colleagues from the academic community, and otherwise honored guests. Thank you very much for being here today. Because this is a big day, especially for me, because we published a book. And not just any book, this is a book we have been working on for more than 2 years. It is probably the book I have read most times in the world. I started reading it, then I read it again and again. But it's also a very good book, and I'm very proud of it. So, as said, my name is Jens Mathesian. I'm from the Royal Danish Defence College, from the Center for Stabilization. And I'm a researcher. And I do these projects here in Pakistan, but also in Afghanistan. And in this specific occasion, I have had the privilege for the last 2 years to manage or to be part of this book project from the RDDC side and help bring this to life. So before we dive into, I want to say, the details of the book, I just want to give you some background on the whole process. Because again, this started more than 2 years ago, and it didn't just happen because Guldat or Abdullah Khan or other of my friends here in Islamabad got a good idea. No, we actually had a more deeper question. Whenever I visit Islamabad, sometimes people ask me, what is the Danish Defence College doing here? Why do you care about Afghanistan? And I mean, it's a fair question, I think. And maybe some of my colleagues from the embassies of the Nordic countries can nod approvingly to this, that Denmark is a small country in the global north. Why do we need to travel all this way? Why do we need to write a book on another country which is far away, Afghanistan? I'm actually sure that some people here in Islamabad think that I'm some sort of intelligence officer in disguise, trying to gain information. But it's not true. The reason we do this is that the Royal Danish Defence College remain engaged to this region, because this region and Afghanistan still matters to the world. Not just regionally, but globally. And it's very important for me to stress this, because my country, Denmark, was part of the war in Afghanistan. We were engaged for more than 20 years. I have colleagues who served there. I have colleagues who lost friends in Afghanistan. And despite of that, despite of having a very big military presence, and we don't need to discuss that, we can look forward now, but despite this, we don't really talk that much about Afghanistan in Denmark. We don't really discuss what is going on. We don't ask questions on what did we leave behind. When Western forces withdrew from Afghanistan in August 2021, Afghanistan became something we talked a little bit about, but it was more of something from the past. It became a memory. I think it's because many Western countries are not happy to revisit some of the painful memories they have from Afghanistan, or to face that what some of them fought for 20 years, that they actually lost. And now there is the Taliban in power. Following this, August 2021, just 6 months later, we are in February 2022, and Russia invaded Ukraine. So in Europe, and I want to say the West in general, we went from talking very little about Afghanistan to not talking about Afghanistan. Because now the security focus was on Ukraine and on Russia. But to me and to the Royal Danish Defence College, Afghanistan is not forgotten. It remains critical that we continue to understand and engage with this country. That we continue to actually care about what is going on inside Afghanistan. So, that was also the basic question that started this book, that I sat with my colleagues from Pakistan here and asked them, what is going on inside Afghanistan? Because from a Western perspective, we almost don't know. We have very limited sources for gaining insight into Afghanistan. There's almost no physical presence. There is almost no intelligence operatives anymore. There is very limited research going on. So what is going on? And in order to assess that, we needed someone who could actually go into Afghanistan. Someone who could actually understand, in a more true sense, the dynamics inside Afghanistan. And that is why we partnered up with the Pakistani Institute for Conflict and Security Studies to do this research project. We began back in June 22 to set out to do the outline, so to speak, on better understand the inner workings of Afghanistan. Very important for this project was that PICS was able to have a research team inside Afghanistan, led by Mr. Guldad. It was something from a Danish perspective that we could never have done. Something that was, as a researcher, was something that was very unique way of actually gaining these insights. So, seeing Afghanistan as this black box, very hard to look into, very hard to assess what is going on. This book is one way of actually opening that black box, or at least peeking inside, maybe poking some holes in it to gain a better understanding. Because in my opinion, I think it's very important that we keep engaging with Afghanistan. There are many parallels today with, or at least you can draw many parallels today with what we saw in the 1990s, where much of the world disengaged from Afghanistan and the first Taliban regime. We all know that story. There was a lot of, from a Western perspective, it ended mostly in the attacks on 9/11 and the following war on terrorism. It is my hope that when we try to open this black box, we will not face the same issues as we did in the 1990s. There will still be problems, there will still be challenges, but my hope is that there will be fewer misunderstandings, fewer, I want to say, lack of a deeper understanding of the inner workings of Afghanistan and the Taliban in particular. So, before I hand the floor to my colleagues from PICS, I just want to officially say a big thank you to the team. Thank you for the, yes please. One thing is going inside Afghanistan, getting data, as researchers would call it, interviewing people, getting insights, but also for the whole process of actually writing this book, editing it, getting it published all the way. I'm fairly certain this would have not happened without the hard work of Mr. Guldad and Mr. Abdullah Khan, so thank you very much. I hope many of you will not just go home, but you will probably take a copy of the book with you. And I hope you just don't do just that, but you also open the book and actually read it. Because there are some truly unique findings in there and some data that has been gathered, which is new and novel in the sense that it is done from field research inside Afghanistan. So, celebrating the release of this book, I think we should all remember that this work is not just about understanding the past years of war in Afghanistan, especially from a Western perspective, or observing Afghanistan from afar. Islamabad is very much closer than Denmark is from Afghanistan, but it is not about this. It is about staying engaged and understanding the present of Afghanistan, because that is the only way that we can prepare for the future. So I hope all of you will keep the conversation going. I hope we will continue the debates following the presentations today, and I look forward very much to speaking to many of you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Jin Matheson. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the important authors of today's book is Mr. Abdullah Khan, Managing Director, Pakistan Institute for Conflict and Security Studies. Majority of you would definitely know that he's a distinguished policy professional and national security advocate from Pakistan. With a career spanning over 3 decades, he has significantly contributed to countering violent extremism and promoting national security. Now, I would like to request Mr. Abdullah Khan, Managing Director, PICS, to please come on the stage and share his contribution about the book.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I was just looking if the print of my slides are there or not. Anyway, let's start. I became an author of this book accidentally. This is mine? Okay. So they are all searching in the hall and my presentation is here. So, Safwan, your search is ended. So I became accidentally author of this book because Guldad was looking after this project and he had hired a scholar for this, and he got hired by another entity. So we were looking at things that how in the mid of this project, so we can bring somebody in, train him, and share all the context with him, and then he will work on that. So I jumped in. So accidentally I became an author. And the 2 most crucial chapters they handed over to me, and they asked me to just give you a brief overview of these 2 chapters. Afghan Taliban, after coming into power after August 2021, they announced that they are going to form a proper army and a whole structure of security forces. So this was a very critical question that to analyze that a proper military being built on the concept of jihad and Islam is being erected, how much that is significant for Pakistan and regional countries and the globe. So we started to look into that from that perspective, that what is the structure, what is the recruitment process, and organizational structure, command structure, and many other things. So we started to study their security forces. Another thing is the presence of militant groups in Afghanistan. So this presentation, briefly, I will discuss these things. Well, you can have, if you are first come first serve base, you can get your copy of the book. Hopefully there are enough copies and you all will get one. But if you miss it, you can find it at our website. It is not for commercial purposes, so you can read it freely as well. So it is better to read the book, but just I will give you a glimpse of what we wrote. So the next slide, Afghanistan, key branches, Afghan military, it includes army and air force. Then there is police force and various sub-agencies of police, including their traffic police and border police and anti-narcotics police and many other polices that you will find in the book. And there is General Directorate of Intelligence, which is their GDI. It has substituted NDS, National Directorate of Intelligence. And restructuring after 2021, because the previous army disappeared. Everybody uses this phrases that disappeared in thin air, or evaporated in the thin air, the previous army. So now Taliban started to build their own army, and what are the challenges for that? They are also discussed in this book. Special forces within Taliban, we all knew that Taliban had a suicide squad called Red Units, and there were some other units. What are their current status? Are they still operating independently or not? So what we found is that the Taliban have integrated most of their special forces, which played a key role throughout this insurgency, into their mostly in army. While the Ministry of Interior, they erected their own special forces. One of them is with the name of Yarmouk, and one special force still operates, which is Victorious Force, Al-Fatah Force. And GDI also has its special forces who are mostly busy in conducting operation against Daesh. Then next, militant groups in Afghanistan. Yeah, I think somebody, where is the slide which had the armies, which I had asked you to include is Afghan Army's course. Huh? Acha. Before this, please. It is not in my print. Okay. Old and new names of, there are 7 corps, corps, or whatever is the term. I don't know, because I am not a military person. So 7 corps, Afghan military, 6 corps they used to had, and Taliban have erected a new corps with the name of 313 corps, which was previously, it was a division, but they announced that it is a separate corps. And you can see the area of their responsibility in Afghanistan. So, next, please. This is Afghan Air Force, and you can see the old and new name and what the equipments they used. They have mostly they have old dated helicopters, and no, I think, fighter jet kind of thing. Some trainer aeroplanes, but they are trying to build it. And there were some gossips that they may talk to Turkey or Qatar to build up their air force. Our friends from Turkey are here. You can ask them after the event that whether it is right or not, but it was gossip. I am not saying anything. So the most important thing is the post 2011, the militant groups. You often see the UN Security Council issuing a report every 6 months about the presence of militant groups on Afghan soil. So these are the militant groups are pro-Taliban, anti-Taliban, and neutral groups. While we have discussed them from a very unique perspective, which will be a very interesting theme and may actually prompt you to read the book. And that is the discussion of manhaj. So what is a manhaj? And that is the basic thing which will help you to understand what is the difference between Al-Qaeda and Taliban. So we generally club them that these are all the jihadi groups. Yes, they are all jihadi groups, and they all are motivated with the concept of jihad. But what is the difference? And that difference is very important to understand, because that difference defines their area of operation or their overall strategy, policy, where to operate, where to attack. So that is the basic a very delicate thing which is generally not discussed, but it is something which is put into this book, and you have to actually understand that. There are types of manhaj prevalent in the jihadi groups. The first is that that we should do jihad only in territories illegally occupied by non-Muslim states, just like in Kashmir or Palestine, or previously it was in Bosnia or any other place where the other countries, non-Muslim countries, have occupied the Muslim lands, and that is called the first part, a kind of manhaj, which is prevalent in jihadi groups. And if you ask me who are these jihadi groups, Afghan Taliban basically belong to this jihadi group, because they have never shown, neither previously nor this time, that they have any agenda outside Afghanistan. It is now a fact that they were not involved in 9/11. It was Al-Qaeda which was harbored by Taliban, but Taliban leadership did not knew about what was going to happen in 9/11 or in America. And there are Kashmiri militant groups who are fighting against India, and Hamas, and many other groups, those who fought initially in Chechnya or in Bosnia, so they are bracketed into that category. The second type of manhaj which is basically stem from Al-Qaeda, and now it is more prevalent in all these jihadi groups, is it says that basically all these Muslim rulers, they are puppets of West, and to save our lands and to save our ideology, we first need to overthrow all these Muslim rulers. So this is the second type. And Al-Qaeda and all the militant groups affiliated with Al-Qaeda or inspired by Al-Qaeda, including Pakistani TTP, they are in this category. And there is a basic difference. Here comes the difference. Many people ask, what is the difference between Afghan Taliban and Pakistani Taliban? And some people said, no, they are same. They fought along each other. So that is the manhaj which differentiates between Afghan Taliban and Pakistani Taliban or TTP. Because Afghan Taliban fought against a foreign invasion, while TTP is fighting against a Muslim rule, a Muslim government. TTP is not a separatist organization. They want to conquer Islamabad, implement their brand of Sharia in Islamabad. That is the difference which is mentioned in this book. You can study in detail. So this is the second kind of manhaj, and which is the most threatening manhaj to the Muslim world, and especially it emanated from the Al-Ikhwan ideology. So it is a very deep discussion if you go into these details from where that emerged and many other things. But basically, its roots you can find in Ikhwan's ideology. The third is now the IS. So IS came up with totally a new manhaj. They said all the Muslim rulers, they are the puppets of the West, and they are infidels. And all the jihadi organizations which are fighting in different places, they are also infidels. So you can see Daesh is fighting with different Muslim, you can say, governments. At the same time, Daesh is also fighting against different jihadi groups, like in Afghan Taliban. In Syria, they fought against Jabhat al-Nusra, and everywhere. And if you study their literature here, all the Islamic organizations of this region, Pakistan and Afghanistan, they declared all of them as non-Muslims, apostates, and they declared that jihad against them is a legitimate responsibility of Muslims. So this is the third manhaj, which has very less following in the Muslim world, but obviously it is posing the biggest threat right now to the Muslim world, because Daesh, most of the time, it remained concentrated, its operation concentrated inside the Muslim world. Few operations, like recently in Russia and Europe, yes, but most of its operations are concentrated in the Muslim land. So these are the three different jihadi manhaj, and this book has actually discussed these, and from this point of view, this classification has been made. And Taliban's approach to deal with these militant, interestingly, most of these militant groups, except Daesh, they are pro-Taliban. They fought along Taliban. Even Al-Qaeda fought along Taliban. So Taliban are, in between, catch-22 situation. They had committed in Doha, we should take action against terrorist groups, but at the same time, they are brother in arms. How should we do it? So this is the dilemma Taliban are facing. But interestingly, Taliban are very smart, except for Pakistan and TTP. They have successfully pacified even Al-Qaeda. Even Al-Qaeda from Afghanistan is currently, from last 2-3 years, not operating against any other country. IMU, which was the remnants of IMU, initial IMU, the main chunk had merged into ISK, but the remaining, they are not fighting against Uzbekistan. The Ansarullah is not operating against Tajikistan, even though they made some postures initially, but Taliban pacified them. Against the Chinese, ETIM is pacified, but only we are their, very, you can say, beloved brothers, that they have not taken care of the TTP. That is an issue. And I think there must be someone from Afghan embassy who can, if they want, they can comment on during Q&A why this is happening. So I think ISKP, this is the most threatening organization in Afghanistan, and Taliban have successfully curtailed their activities in Afghanistan. And alarmingly, ISKP and ISPP, though there are two organizations, ISPP is Dawlat al-Islamiyya Pakistan, and ISKP is Khurasan, and some parts of Pakistan are into Khurasan, so it is lengthy discussion. Their operations in Pakistan are now more than their operations in Afghanistan. So this is a bit of success story by Afghan Taliban against ISKP. They have successfully killed almost all of the top tier leadership except few, including what is the name of Dr. Mahajar and Rajab. So these are the few words which are discussed in this book. I think I took more than what was assigned to me, but I hope that you have listened to me and you can ask questions during Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Now is the time to invite our second author of the book, Mr. Guldat, Director, Research at Pakistan Institute for Conflict and Security Studies, with over more than 3 decades of experience in teaching, educational planning, management, research, and security analyst. This experience has actually made him aptly contributed towards the development of this research project as the principal investigator. Please welcome Mr. Guldat.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, thank you very much for everyone coming this evening for this book launch ceremony. I think I will not discuss much about the book, though I will be discussing some points, but it would be better to discuss what happened around the book, because I was the project director and principal investigator. As Mr. Abdullah told that he was actually called in to do some writing work when the data collection was in progress, because 2 of our researchers were required to move out. And this wasn't the only dilemma. Actually, we had hired some Afghan researchers for this project. They were trained, and when we finally asked them to go into the field, and we will be joining shortly, they just disappeared in the thin air. And then we will have to start the process again. And what we actually did that we took the researchers team from here. You know that Afghanistan is a different country, different territory, different society. So my dilemma was that I wasn't that much conversant in Pashto or Dari. So I was mostly relying on the people who were working or who were hired for this project from Afghanistan. So I actually asked my teams here who were with Pashtun background, and especially one of my colleagues, he isn't here, he is abroad. He was supposed to join, but he could not. He had served in Afghanistan for some time during the Republic era, and his presence and his inclusion in the team was very, very effective for us to gain access to Afghanistan, to visit various places which were otherwise may not be possible for any visitor to visit. And we were able to meet so many people, common men, Afghan Taliban, maybe other militants who renounced violence, and those who are still doing some sort of violence. So we met everyone. We met government officials, we met common people, we met traders, everyone. So we got some understanding that what's happening in Afghanistan. I think I should appreciate my team who was with me, because working in Afghanistan is very challenging, especially when you are coming from outside and you are supposed to, especially when you are working on subject like security. So it was very difficult. People from the Taliban intelligence, what you call the GDI, they will always follow us wherever we will move, especially when we were in Kandahar, in Kabul as well. So working in Afghanistan wasn't that easy. So I'm thankful for all of them that who took part in this journey, visited Afghanistan, spent time, and there was threat. I mean, may not be the actual threat, but the perceived threat was there. So I should appreciate my team for their dedication and that work. And I'm thankful Mr. Jans as well. He's a very good friend of mine. He was very cooperative. Abdullah Khan, my own team, my own chairman. It was very, very, very productive and very learning opportunity for me. I mean, personally for myself. I have been to this field for almost last 3 decades. But this was entirely a different experience, working with a lot of subject matter experts, meeting them, interacting them. We held almost 5 roundtable discussions by PICS. One was International Roundtable Conference, which was jointly organized by PICS and the RDDC. And we have interviewed a lot of people. I can see General Inam here, and Imtiaz Gulsab sitting there, Ms. Amna Khan, my friend over there, and so many other experts who are very much renowned in the field, and we had the opportunity to listen to them either in the roundtable discussions or focus group discussions or in our face-to-face interviews. Let's have some hint of what's there in the book. I will try to keep it very simple, very short, very brief, so that you are able to actually read what is in the book. Please. Actually, I'm discussing about the first chapter, the Afghan Taliban, how Taliban evolved, what is their origin. Keep ticking, because we don't have the. What is the role of Islam, Sharia, and how they actually evolved over time. Ideological evaluation after 2011, what happened when Taliban were in insurgency, what major changes took place. First was the shift from purely an Islamic movement to an Islamic nationalist movement incorporating other ethnicities, changing views on Shia Muslims, incorporated Barelvi school of thought, and then They changed their views on photography and media. There was a lot of changes within Taliban. What we say that Taliban 1.0 and 2.0, so what is the difference between Taliban 2.0 and 1.0? I basically believe that it wasn't as such Taliban 2.0. It may be Taliban 1.25, maybe 1.35, maybe 1.45. In some areas you may call it 1.65, but it wasn't as such. The people who belonging to the software engineering areas, they might have better understanding that why these versions actually matters. Because 1 and 2 means a lot of change. But when you say 1.2 and 1.3, it means change is not that much, what you call it. And the important thing that during this insurgency, Taliban actually established a shadow government. And shadow government does not mean merely that they were appointing governors or important positions, but they actually administrating justice. They were collecting taxes, revenue, and they were actually controlling the law and order situation in their areas of influence where they had their presence. Next, please. Then I have discussed, I don't want to actually burden you with all these things, but the Abdul Hakim Haqqani, who is current Chief Justice, maybe acting as the full Chief Justice, he has written a book, and that actually explains what Taliban actually means, what the Sharia is, and how they actually want to govern Afghanistan. And that explains that material gains versus guiding people towards Allah, and enjoining good and probating vice. And you know that Muslim worlds and the forms of government, there is a lot of difference in the Muslim world. We see secular democracy on one hand, and in the other spectrum we see theology. For example, in Iran you will be seeing the clergy is having control of the affairs of the state, but they have some sort of political system, or the democratic system, where the president is elected by the people. And then on the other hand, you have secular democracies where religion is separate from the state affairs, and for example in Turkey and other Muslim countries. So there is a difference between in the Muslim world, that how the government should be and how the structure of the governance should be. So the Taliban are actually at the right most extreme on that spectrum, where their approach towards the government is theological, number one, and number two, there is no democratic means of actually people coming to the helm of the affairs. So there is no democratic way. The Taliban have established some sort of informal, or some kind of, you may call it formal form of consultative councils at different levels, at the central levels, at the province level, and at the district levels. And these councils actually provide input to the administrative unit of that particular area. But this council is a non-elected body. It is nominated by Taliban Amir, whatever he likes, or whomever he wants to appoint somewhere, he is free. But the participation, there is some sort of participation, but the participation is basically unsystematic and non-inclusive in this nature. The Taliban get legitimacy through theological sources, total submission to Amir, and the question is, what about the people who are Afghans but not Taliban per se? So the approach, or the command and the reverence for the leader could be for Taliban members, but it could not be for general people, for everyone in Afghanistan. So please, next. This is how the role of the Afghan population is being analyzed, has been analyzed. I have used the Maslow's hierarchy of need, and I believe this could be relevant to studying what's happening in Afghanistan in terms of the population. I believe that at times this is the time where the Afghan population is facing a lot of hardships, humanitarian crisis, and economic issues. So the physiological needs and the safety needs are their priority. And once these needs are met and the expectations of the Afghan people are met by the Taliban, then the possibility of the other needs will emerge, where the people will ask for political rights, for other rights, and something like that. And this is, I think, very important for understanding all the whole scenario from an academic point of view. Please, next. The role of Afghan population in terms of how the Taliban actually see this. Amir is their center. And around Amir, we find the Shura, are the people who are, what would you call, the clergy, or the religious scholars. Amir gets input from them. And they have the major influence on Amir. And after that, you can say that then Afghan Taliban, the members of the movement, they have their influence, and then you keep moving out, and you'll see Afghan population, and finally the international community. So when you are trying to actually exert pressure on Taliban from what you say the international community, you can see how much influence that will be reaching to Amir. So it's a difficult thing to understand. Maybe it is difficult to explain, but the influence from the external environment, or maybe the outside of Afghanistan, is not that much that one could ask that the Amir will change or their policy will change. So that needs to be understood, please. This is the structure of the government. I'll not be discussing, just go ahead. Actually, in book chapter 4, we have discussed the security situation in Afghanistan, and basically two important events were made the benchmark. One was the Doha Agreement, which actually culminated the operation by the US and NATO forces in Afghanistan, and they've subsequently evacuated. And we have analyzed 1 year before Doha Agreement and 1 year after Doha Agreement, and which actors were involved before and after. And you can just see Afghan security forces and NATO forces, plus these were the pre-Doha attack situation. You can see the numbers, and the numbers after the Doha Agreement, and same is the case with deaths. You can just have a look. That's how things were happening before Doha Agreement and after Doha Agreement, because this book explains all the elements, so I will not be discussing what was the actually reasons the violence went up, and when violence went up, and when violence went down. So please, next. And the second thing was the takeover of Afghan Taliban. So we actually compared 2 years before Taliban takeover and 2 years after takeover, so make a comparison how the security situation have evolved in Afghanistan. So the main crux, and this explains in the slide as well, that the security situation in Afghanistan has improved tremendously. Those who have already visited, they must be knowing that security situation in Afghanistan has improved a lot. And there are certain challenges, security challenges, but overall, the Afghan Taliban have been able to control a large, maybe all parts of Afghanistan, because now there is as such no specific area which is outside their control. There are militant groups which are operating, but the whole of Afghanistan has been under the control of Afghan Taliban. Please. This is the next chapter. Yeah, I've discussed that what are the issues, the problems China is facing. We analyze and assess that China has no direct threat, but TIP and other militant groups are posing challenge for China. TIP, for example, and as TTP, ISKP has actually attacked Chinese in Kabul. as well as Pakistan. Here in Pakistan, TTP carrying out attacks against Chinese interests, the BLA or the other Baloch militant groups carrying attacks against Chinese interests and nationals. And similarly, we have also seen that some other groups are also creating some problems for China. Maybe may not be for now, but possibly for the future as well. China actually moving very cautiously. They are diplomatically engaging Taliban, but they are concerned about what's happening in Afghanistan. Please, next. Pakistan challenge. The refugee influx bordering Pakistan's economy. Pakistan's forced deportation of intensified political tensions between Pakistan and Afghanistan. TTP major bone of contention, you already know. Smuggling through porous border hurts Pakistan's economy, and these are the challenges Pakistan is facing. And militant groups' access to advanced weapons and their enhanced capabilities. Because after coming to power of Afghan Taliban, the militant groups operating here in Pakistan, they got access to sophisticated weapons, and their capacity to actually launch sophisticated attacks against Pakistani security forces has increased tremendously over the last 2 and 3 years. So this is one of the challenge. Then potentially the water crisis, sharing problem, because Afghan Taliban have shown some intent to actually build some sort of dam on Chitral-Kunar River, and border tensions, and because recently Afghan authorities have raised the issue of the Durand line, the Afghan-Pakistan border. Please, next. Iran has a marriage of convenience. They have some convergence of interests and divergence of interests. So I'll not be discussing much. Go next. Central Asian states, their own concerns and problems. These are all the things which have been discussed in detail in the book, because I don't want to actually bore you that much to discuss these things time and again. So I'll be just skipping. Go next. And the concerns for the West, first of all, is the Al-Qaeda, ISKP, the militant groups. But I believe that the other militant groups who are operating in Afghanistan right now, which may not be directly threat to West or the US, they could become a threat to the West and this broader region. Because if there is a major change in Afghanistan, the relations between Afghan Taliban and those groups could be affected, and this change of relationship could impact actually the security, not only in region, but beyond that. And then there is always a refugee crisis, refugee issues, because whenever there is an instability in Afghanistan, people will either come to Pakistan, Iran, and some will go to the Central Asian, but people will also go to Europe and the US. And this is concern for them, that militants can actually move in, and refugee crisis is always creating problem for the local communities, for local economies, and you know the politicians are very much concerned about that. Please, next. Just a few words about the Afghan formal and informal judicial system. After coming to power, Taliban not only implemented their Sharia-based system, but they actually adopted, or maybe you call it, continued to use the alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. For example, Jirga and some other local mechanisms they have also tried to use. And at the same time, they are also using the police for settling disputes, which is not actually found in Pakistan in most of the cases. Even the police is settling issues before going to the judiciary, and if two parties are agreed to accept police as a mediator, they can settle their disputes in Thana, what you call the police station, instead of going to other things. So, please. Taxation system of Taliban adopted two taxation system. One, the taxation system which was actually working during the Republic era. They actually adopted the whole system as it is. And then they added the Islamic taxation system, which is called the zakat and ushur. So they actually adopted that system that is fully adopted, and the collection of revenue has improved as compared to Republic era, primarily because the Taliban have made the system much effective and with minimum corruption as compared to previous era. So the Taliban were able to actually generate revenue from this taxation system. So they have the flat rate, and they have their own progressive taxation. In some cases, they apply, for example, 5,000 Afghanis, 1,000 Afghanis, or 2,000 Afghanis as a tax, and sometimes you will see that they will tax you at the percentage of your income. But on the other hand, the zakat and ushur, you know that zakat is applied to income and livestock, and then the ushur is agricultural produce. That is fixed. And then they generate revenue from custom and mining, custom duties. As I said, the eradication of corruption, that helped to collect money, and mining contracts were awarded to locally as well as to some foreign players, foreign companies. NGOs facing a lot of problems. We met various people who were working previously in NGOs. They were working with the media, with other similar institutions. They are facing a lot of problem, not only because the restrictions imposed by Taliban, but because the money coming from the international community after the withdrawal of the US NATO forces has just dried up, and the people are not able to actually find jobs or the opportunities to work. So the NGOs are facing problems in Afghanistan. And then importantly, the banking system, because you know that Afghanistan is not connected to SWIFT, and that is the problem, that the NGOs are not able to get money from abroad, and Taliban are also controlling their finances as well, that where this money is coming from. And finally, they don't actually issue the licenses or the permits, or you can call the NOC, for these NGOs to operate in Afghanistan. So the NGOs sector is very much facing difficulty to operate in Afghanistan. Please. Just skip it. Coming directly to the conclusion and recommendations. Transformation, internal change. Taliban evolved but not aligned with Afghan societal changes. What we believe that the Afghan society over the last 2 decades has changed much, but Taliban didn't. Taliban did change, but the change in the society was much larger than the change in Taliban. So this is the major dilemma, because you know that during the Republic era, when the international money was coming, there were international NGOs working, media was vibrant, and there were other opportunities for people. For example, the social media, internet facilities were there. So people were able to express, they were able to actually take part in elections, taking part in protests and so many other things. And especially the social media, they were able to actually see what's happening in the world and what's happening in Afghanistan and how they can change. So because this actually created a specific segment of society, and Afghan Taliban actually did not change that much the way Afghan society changed. Internal shifts more likely than external pressure, but as I already explained when I explained the influence of the environment on Amir, and engagement in diplomacy and economics preferred over sanctions. This is our major finding. Security and stability and improved security, though militant threats remain, and regional global cooperation in counterterrorism is essential. There is a problem, security situation improved, but the militant threat always and continues to remain there, and international community and the regional countries need to come up with a counterterrorism strategy. Economic and humanitarian crisis, severe economic and humanitarian challenges, And international aid and unfreezing of assets, unfreezing of Afghan financial assets is crucial to actually meet this humanitarian and economic challenge. And resuming development assistance needed to avoid any instability in Afghanistan, because if the Afghanistan and because Taliban may be the last bet for many of us, and if Taliban failed, there may be more problem than what you are facing today in Afghanistan. Please. The new agreements for regional countries and for regional stability. We believe that Afghan Taliban say that we have signed an agreement with the US, they call the Doha agreement, but when the other countries engage with them or criticize them for their action, they said that we don't have any agreement with you. So actually the other regional countries, for example, Pakistan or maybe Iran, China and other Central Asian states should sign bilateral agreements with Taliban. And you know that Afghan Taliban, when they try to present their Doha agreement, they tried it as a commitment of their leadership. So what I want to say is that basically they drive some theological argument from that commitment. They may not be fully implementing it, but to convince their own cadres, they are actually trying to use some theological arguments. So I believe that if other regional countries are able to sign some bilateral agreements, this will be a first step to increase cooperation or see some cooperation from Afghanistan. Just to last a few words. Oh yes, I believe that education is one of the areas where international community and especially the Muslim world can contribute and then can facilitate, and in an area where Afghan Taliban are also interested to seek input or the assistance from outside world. And then the very important thing, what I believe is that the international community or the regional countries need to engage Taliban through a structured, a composite sort of dialogue where you put all the issues on the table, all the issues which are concern of the regional countries, which are the concern of the international community, are placed on the table, and the issues which are actually relevant to Taliban, they are also put on the table, and then you just try to use a policy of give and take. Few things that the Taliban would be willing to accept, some things that they won't be accepting, something that international could accept. But I believe that the structured and composite dialogue would be a better option to engage Taliban instead of engaging merely individually or bilaterally. So multilateral engagement will be, I believe, is the key to engage Taliban productively. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gulzad Sahab, for this deliberation and a detailed overview of the book. Your dedication and commitment alongside your team, despite facing challenges, has been commendable. Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to have with us today His Excellency Mr. Albert Ilses, Ambassador to Pakistan of the Kingdom of Norway. I would request him to please share his views on this important launch with us. Sir.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, flag officers, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to have been invited to speak here today. I would like to congratulate the authors, editors, and the Pakistan Institute for Conflict and Security Studies, together with your partner, the Royal Danish Defence College, on the publication of this book now. Having had the chance to read the book over the weekend, I would state without hesitation that it is very valuable indeed. It's timely, it's relevant. I would say it does fill a gap in the literature in helping to begin to answer the question that you put in the first sentence of the preface. What is currently happening in Afghanistan? The value of the book, as I see it, is not least because of its framing, with 6 chapters covering different aspects of the situation and Taliban as a government, and the time frame covered, in a sense bridging the last years before the fall of the Republic and the first years of the Taliban government and their governance. This is done in a way that I would say establishes a very comprehensive baseline of developments and dynamics with respect to the inception of Taliban rule in Afghanistan. The book is valuable also, I would suggest, because of its richness. Very, very rich in terms of analytical insights. I'm not aware of any other work that does this at this time, and bringing all of this together in such an accessible way. So well done, sirs. It would take too long to list all of the merits of the book. I've mentioned the framing and the systematic way in which the different chapters comprehensively survey key issues and aspects, and we've had the flavor of that now, but I would recommend you to pick up a copy and actually read it. Very rich, as I said. One example is chapter 2, which in a very comprehensive way deals with the formation and composition of the Afghan armed forces under the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, so-called. Let me also mention in particular chapter 4, which deals with the security situation and dynamics of violence in the last years of the Republic and the first years of Taliban rule. This chapter contains a wealth of data and statistics, and the analysis is very interesting. I say this as somebody who followed the diplomatic process in Doha quite closely throughout the whole period in question, first the US-Taliban talks, and later the failed attempts to get intra-Afghan negotiations started. It's clear that a lot of work and effort has gone into collecting the material found in the chapter and in doing the analysis. And this will be very, very this is a service also to other researchers and historians and diplomatic historians when they go back to look more thoroughly at this quite fateful period in the future. One interesting snippet is sort of how that chapter investigates this, the dynamics in the last months and weeks leading up to the fall of Kabul. And let's just say that one has a different perspective on this myth of the bloodless takeover, having read the book than perhaps before one came to it. Also, chapter 3 could be mentioned, extremely useful survey of the militant organizations operating in and from Afghanistan today. As I said, also, more generally, a wealth of interesting analysis and analytical judgments and insights. Any observer of the Afghanistan-Pakistan relationship will find a section on Pakistan's perpetual Afghan dilemma, as you have titled it, interesting. But as I think the authors correctly diagnose, the dilemma runs both ways. And I thought I liked the formulation so much that I thought I would sort of read it to you. Page 188. The IA, so this is in the context of the Pakistan's perpetual Afghan dilemma, but the authors argue the dilemma runs both ways. The IEA is caught between the devil and the deep blue sea as it finds itself at a crossroads where action against the TTP causes internal problems, as TTP possibly joining ISKP, but not taking action against TTP makes its relations with Pakistan unfriendly with obvious implications. Therefore, the IEA can neither explicitly divorce TTP nor can it afford to keep Pakistan angry for a longer period of time. Inevitably, one is unlikely to agree with all of the book's findings or analytical judgments. There are a number of points in the book where I would argue respectfully that the text contains assertions, judgments that are not, perhaps, as I see it, backed up with sufficient argument or evidence. One example, page 138, is where the book essentially argues that former President Ashraf Ghani's administration was mainly to be blamed for the delay of the start of the intra-Afghan talks in 2020, 2021. This isn't necessarily wrong, but it's a very complicated issue that ideally would deserve more in-depth treatment. I don't think you make the case for that argument. I could also mention page 42, what I found a very curious characterization of the Durand Line issue as a technical kind of dispute. It seems to me to be slightly more than that. Also page 121, since the Taliban brought, I quote, since the Taliban brought peace and at the same time speedy justice, their support among the masses are increasing, unquote. Perhaps. I'm not convinced. I don't know whether we know enough to make that judgment. I don't think you back it up sufficiently. And perhaps sort of a final point of criticism, looking at the treatment of tribal dynamics within what is the ruling regime in Afghanistan today, the Taliban. To my mind, they're quite important. I think that could have been looked at more closely. You mentioned the Haqqani-Kandahar division. Yes, sure, but this is a rather superficial, sort of easy take. But these are quibbles. They do not detract from the very real value of the book, not least from a practitioner's perspective. I especially like the conclusions and recommendations towards the end of the book. They are well grounded, quite nuanced, and usefully practical. Also, and we diplomats, we are simple people. We need sort of straightforward and practical advice. I'll end there. One could say much about the situation and the sort of future. Mr. Westerlund made the case for continued engagement with Afghanistan. I represent a European government that has continued to engage with Afghanistan. Some of you may be aware that we even went so far as to invite a ministerial level delegation from Kabul to Oslo in early 2022, only 6 months after the Taliban had taken power. Mr. Muttaqi and also the Minister of Justice and several other high-level leaders visited Oslo. I would have to say that it's not clear that engagement has paid off so far. But I personally agree with the call for continued engagement at multiple levels, including diplomatically. For now, Norwegian diplomats continue to travel to Kabul to meet with the new rulers of Afghanistan and other Afghans and international colleagues there. Thank you very much, and again, well done on a great book. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Now, I would like to request Ambassador Ayaz Wazir, Pakistan's former ambassador to Afghanistan, to please come on the stage and have his views about the book. Sir, please.
General Khatak Saab and the administrative team of his organization. I am grateful to all of you for inviting me to talk to such a distinguished gathering where I'm really failing or in the true sense difficult to find the suitable words to express my opinion about the book. A lot has already been said about the book, and I don't think we have left, or they have left the speakers much to the participant to buy the book. They have read everything, they know what is in there. I would not like to comment more than, in fact, when I was invited to come and talk, I thought to avoid, because Afghanistan is on everybody's book, everybody is expert in Afghanistan, so I was a little scared of it, confronting a gathering like this. But the general, I must say, was clever, more clever than me. He sent me a copy of the book, complimentary copy, so he left me with no choice but to come and talk to you, and obviously admire the book. No doubt the book certainly is a big achievement. It covers the Afghan 2.0 right from day one till it is going on. And there is a good commentary on the origin of the Taliban, which includes Taliban 1.0 also. So it's a very informative book. I would not comment more than that, but just restrict myself to the political side of it. It has beautifully said in the beginning of the book, the main reasons, I would take it that way, of why the Taliban and the Western world, including obviously everyone in the West, America also, are not coming closer to take the country forward towards development in every field. The difficulty or the main problem is the recognition of the Taliban as a government in Afghanistan. I feel, this is my assessment, maybe I'm totally wrong, that when the Taliban entered into an agreement with the US in Doha, the understanding, I feel, maybe I repeat again and again that I may be wrong, the understanding that the Taliban got or given to them, that they will be recognized by the world body if they take over. That's why I think they gave the undertaking of taking care of the militants in their country. The reason was that if we are recognized, then we would be able to take action against the militants, not to operate from Afghanistan or within Afghanistan. But what we see is that now they have completed 3 years, over 3 years, but there is no recognition from anywhere. And we all are accusing the Taliban that they have not honored the Doha Agreement. Yes, I agree. One way they have not. They have not taken action against the militants, but have the world body also taken the responsibility of engaging with the Taliban in the true sense? though indirectly almost every country which has some interest or some stakes in Afghanistan are engaging with them. The indirect engagement is there. Rather, some countries have gone much more ahead. China took the lead, accepting their ambassador, sending its own ambassador over there, followed by UAE, and now I believe followed by Uzbekistan also. My point here is that right from day one, I am of the opinion that the Taliban should be recognized as a government in Afghanistan if we want to save the country from falling again into what it has experienced over the last 40 years. This is the first time after 40 or 45 years of war in Afghanistan that the Taliban have brought the entire country under control. There is no war going on, no serious problem in the country, and for 3 years, without being recognized, they have proved to the world that they are capable of controlling the country. Now, if we do not extend the recognition helping hand, then what are we doing? What are we contributing to the development of the country? Won't the Taliban feel that they are faced to the wall? Or go to the worst scenario. If the Taliban government fails in delivery, dismantles, then what happens to Afghanistan? Won't it be back to square one? This is what we used to tell the West when Mullah Omar took over, to please keep engaged with the Taliban. Don't completely isolate them. Don't push them to the wall. Or else, God forbid, something serious will happen. And that has happened, and the rest is a history. So let's look at the Taliban. They have proved their mettle. Whether we like them or do not like them, they have brought peace. Some people call it a peace of the graveyard, whatever name you may give, but there is a peace. Let's build further on that to strengthen give political strength to the country to move forwards towards economic development. Because without that, I don't think anything can work. But at the same time, the Afghan government or the Taliban, they should also look into the problem that the West or everyone, including us, have with them. The three most important things are that take action against the militants, which I described. I feel their weakness is that without recognition, they would be creating a problem for themselves within the country if they start sorting them out. If recognition is extended, then they may be able to take action in cooperation and coordination with the rest of the world. The second most important point which everyone expects of them is to have an inclusive government. Now here, my personal opinion is that is there any country in the world which has an all-inclusive government? In democracy, whichever party wins forms a government and the opposition sits in the opposition. Here, we are expecting them to include everyone, every stakeholder or every ethnicity, which the Taliban says that yes, we have every ethnicity, but even leave that aside. Did the American honor this very principle when dealing with the Taliban in Doha? Did they include Ashraf Ghani's government, which still was in control of Afghanistan? Ashraf Ghani was kept away, or the government in Kabul was kept away. The agreement was made with the Taliban. Or even Ashraf Ghani or Hamid Karzai, when they were ruling the country, did they include everyone in their government? So let's leave it to the Afghans. If they are happy with it, okay. If they are not happy, it is their internal matter. Let them sort it out. But the third important aspect which the Taliban I don't think have a reasonable argument to offer to the world, is the human right violation, women right, and girls' education. That I don't think even religiously they can offer a good argument to the people to support them in this. They should make immediate or take immediate steps to address this issue. So I feel the responsibility is on both the sides. Let's consider, let's think how the two, I mean the West or all the world, the countries outside and the Afghan can come closer to find solution to the problem in Afghanistan. The regional countries, the immediate neighbor, and the international world, they have also to consider, and the Taliban also. They have to make some concession, make a compromise. If one wants to impose its decision on the other, that is not going to accept. And if the Taliban wants to carry the words after them or with them, that also is not going to happen. We may read books, we may read articles, whatever, or we may listen to experts on Afghanistan and make our opinion, but that will not add anything into the resolution of the problem in Afghanistan. The resolution lies in a political compromise between the two. If that is not done, I am afraid we would be heading towards what happened before, and for almost 40 years the country was burning, and Pakistan also was suffering. One thing which I would like to ask by the worthy panelist once said that all the militant groups present in Afghanistan are somehow controlled by the Taliban. They are not bothering China or Tajikistan or Uzbekistan. The only one which they are not controlling is TTP, hurting us. No doubt, it's a fact. But my question is, and with that I'll finish, why Pakistan alone? Why are they not controlling the Taliban? So with this I leave. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Ayasab. We'll move towards our next review of the book. We have with us Mr. David Westinskov from Royal Danish Defence College to share his comments about the book, and we'll move towards the answer of the question in the question answer session.
Thank you. Yes, I think that then I will be one of the last speakers, and as mentioned before, okay, I said one of the last. So I mean a lot of I mean the book has been almost read, not reviewed. So what I will try to focus on here is why this was important for us, going back to what Jen said initially. And of course, it came out of a chaotic 2021, a chaotic withdrawal. This book is a product of that. It's a product of a question. And I think the beauty about the book is that it doesn't produce any answer as I see it. And that's how research should do it. It can be applied by diplomats, by politicians, by other researchers, but it depends on the answers, or sorry, it depends on the questions that they will ask, because this book can be used for a lot of things. It can be used for a lot of pathways. But what I think is the best part about the book is that it produces a fundament that can be used by people in Pakistan, by people in Denmark, and especially by people in the West in general. Because as was mentioned before, we are in a situation now where 3 years after the Taliban takeover, they are still there. And in the West, we're still asking us the question, what to do? So we need information to do that. Now we already knew that that would be the main question for the next many years back in 2021. So that's why we also turned to PICSS, as we also turned to them when I initially came here 10 years ago and wondered, how does the madrasa system function? I don't know who to ask in the West, so I found a partner in Pakistan to ask. And this time, the same. When we needed answers or information, we also turned to PICS. And I'm very happy that you helped us provide this information. And especially, if you look at the years gone by while producing these books, I mean the events in Afghanistan has also proved to me what a British author once wrote, that there are two tragedies in life. One is not getting what you want, and one is getting what you want. And I think that the West and Pakistan represent each one of those tragedies at the moment when looking at Afghanistan. And in order to move further, in order to, you could say, bring stability to Afghanistan or develop Afghanistan, of course there need to be political compromises. But this has been the case for the last 20 years. We said, well, let's put all regional states together and then they can find out a silver bullet solution. I don't think that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen this time either. So I disagree with part of the book calling for this regional solution. I mean, also from our center, we like to chop things down into things that we can do instead of focusing on things that we cannot do. So I think that it basically comes down to a question of bilateral relations. It comes down to what does Afghanistan represent for each country? What is the importance of Afghanistan for each country that wants to be engaged? And now we actually have some information on what Afghanistan looks like. So in security politics, there is not something that you have to do. There are only choices and there are consequences. And stability in Afghanistan might be the focus or might be the objective of many countries, but the opposite might also be the case for other countries. So bringing all these countries together, expecting some kind of compromise, would again be naive. And I think that if you look at all the recommendations that you collected in the book, they of course all revolves around the question of recognition. And I also think that it's also fair to state that many of the things that you also recommend in other sectors in terms of stability and economical development, recognition in one form or the other seems like a prerequisite for everything else to to being able to be pursued, at least. So I think with these recommendations, you've also highlighted the main political focus area. You've highlighted the importance, the most important feature for the policy towards Afghanistan. But I think it's important that you look to the region and not to the West to drive this process. Because I'm sorry, it's too soon for the West to engage in this. It's way too soon. So as long as there is no regional driver in this question, I think that the West will remain in a waiting position, and there will need to be developed different pathways of support, different channels. And I would also say that in order for this to succeed, it should probably be less vocal. It should most likely be less public, at least for the coming years, as the agreements that are required in Afghanistan, there is a lot of face-saving issues still. So public statements, press conference, and political demands will most likely be counterproductive in the coming phase. And I think that the book can actually also be used to illustrate that point. So, without taking more of your time, I'll just congratulate the team. Abdullah Khan, been a pleasure. I thought the cake was for me because it was 10 years ago we met, exactly this week. And Guldat, also been a pleasure working with you for so long, and of course also Jens. Congratulations on a very, very good book.
Thank you, David. Now I would like to invite Ms. Amina Khan, Director, Center for Afghanistan, Middle East and Africa, Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad, to please come on the stage and share her review of the book.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you to Pixon, the RDC, for inviting me, and a big congratulations, of course, to the authors. I know it's not easy writing a book. It's a laborious task, but congratulations, you've done it. For the sake of not repeating what has already been said, I'm going to be very crisp and short. At least I will try to be. Now, there's a lot of material available, but I think what makes this book, I think, a little unique is the multidisciplinary approach that you have taken. I think this is important. And this, I think, is grounded in the fact that there's both qualitative and quantitative research. And I think this is something that is often missing. We always get academic approaches that miss these two critical aspects of research. So, and this, I think, is evident from the data that you have been able to provide, number one. Also, I think it has academic rigor to it, which again adds to the usefulness of the book. While you have covered the book comprehensively and tried to cover all major issues, there are always some aspects that are missing, and I think I would have liked to see a little more on national reconciliation and social healing. I think this is a very important aspect that we often tend to miss when we focus on Afghanistan. And while you have given recommendations, I mean, we can agree to disagree. This is, a longer debate. But I did find the disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration policy quite interesting, particularly for a country like Afghanistan, which, by the way, is still in the process of evaluation, and it's evolving, and plus the government hasn't been recognized. So I would have liked to hear a little more about this. But again, to be crisp and short, I will just end by saying that, it does provide in-depth analysis, extensive research, and academic rigor, and I think it could be used as a useful resource material, for people that are interested in Afghanistan, because it is very rigorous. But one criticism, and I will end here, is that I think you could have come up with a much better cover than this. I mean, it's such an interesting topic, but honestly, looking at this, when Guldad sent it to me last week through a PDF, I wasn't interested in. That's why I'm so late in coming today. So I think you haven't done justice in terms of the cover, but otherwise, congratulations.
Very genuine perspective indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, we are moving towards our question and answer session. If you have any questions from the authors of the book, I would request you to please be very crisp about your question. First, introduce yourself, your organizational affiliation, and then the question, please. Please come here. Give it to him. Okay.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I must congratulate Abdullah Saab and Guldad Saab and the authors for this incredible contribution. Based on your presentation. So I have quick two questions. One is, as per your presentation, because I didn't read the book, your book that the Afghanistan governance is based on theology. So we had some dialogue with middle level Taliban leadership. So they have what we got information is that somehow they have inculcated religious clerics or madrasa graduates in different government departments. So have you find this fact or not? So I want this correction. And the second is there, my another indicator is there any flexibility have you found now in Afghan, in Taliban leadership about girls' education? Because what we see is they mentioned that now in Afghanistan, in some areas, there are girls' schools are running, but we have defined some criteria. If they follow that criteria, they are eligible to open the schools. And the lastly, Guldad Sahab, you mentioned about civil society. So have you found any, you can say, a space or a gray space where civil society can work in this atmosphere? You have mentioned there are certain restrictions, but is there any gray area? So if you comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you. The first answer to your question is yes. And the second question, the second answer is that, and again, yes, some schools are open and some are closed. Officially, they said that we are not against the girls' education, but we need infrastructure to have separate school system, and that is the space for international community and INGOs. You belong to that sector, so that is an opportunity for all you guys to step in. So they have this that we are not against the girls' education, but we need a separate. You know, here in Pakistan, we also have separate education for boys and girls. All the government schools in Pakistan are separate till metric for boys and girls. So same is in Afghanistan, Taliban, they also want the separate system, but they say that we don't have this infrastructure for that. But there is a deep debate going on within the clergy, which actually controls the whole system, and the people around Mullah Habatullah, that whether the girls need the education or not, and that is the problematic area, which is we can discuss later on. The third question is with Guldad, and you should also be so brisk and swift so that we end it timely.
Your question was related to civil society?
Yeah, civil society. Is there any gray area where, in all this atmosphere, because, there are some people or want to work.
Okay, yes. In fact, this is difficult to actually respond your question either yes or no. The solution somewhere lies in between. What I believe that in certain areas there is a possibility. For example, there is a requirement in terms of education. For example, The Afghan Taliban, their leadership has repeatedly mentioned the lack of capacity of the Taliban officials to actually deal with the modern issues or the issues the society is facing. So what they are actually, they are not having that much technical expertise required for running the government. So this is one area where you can do something in terms of education. I mean, when I say education, it means that you can push something which could be helpful for the Afghan society and the general public. This is the one area. And then second is the, you know that I have told you that the religious scholars are at the helms of the affair at most of the areas. And I believe that this is mentioned in the book that the religious scholars are the judicial arm of the state, could be engaged some way for some sort of interaction with the outer world, especially the Muslim world, where we can have some debate and discussion about how to deal with the issues that are the modern world is facing, and then you have the theological arguments, I think.
Yes, please give him the mic.
First, General, I would, having my association with you, I will take a couple of minutes. So it's a question and a comment. And I'm Dr. Zahid, a retired general from the army. And my understanding of Afghanistan dates back to when, as a brigadier general, I landed in CENTCOM and stayed there in the CENTCOM and interacted with everybody, started from General Petraeus to General John Allen, that how the world looked at Afghanistan, and when the Obama surge was done, so how it went. So when I came back, so as a commanding general in Balochistan, so I was lucky to take over from General Saad. But what really intrigued me as a Pakistani, that will we find peace with our Western neighbor? And therefore, my key question basically stems from a hypothesis which was given by Dr. Christian, you know, the former director from Peace Research Institute, Oslo, in his very good book, that A Rock Between Hard Places. And he says that the competing interest and the insecurities of the regional players and global players are played in a competing framework which will not bring peace to Afghanistan. And the other thing is that, you know, after the Bonn Agreement 2001, it was the modern Afghan state after 9/11 was created through Bonn Agreement. 2 tenures of Hamid Karzai, 2 tenures of Ashraf Ghani, and the state collapsed. $1 trillion went into Afghanistan. Will there be a state again? So that's the key question, because I did my research for over 1.5 years in finding the deeper causes of the collapse of the Afghan state. And until unless we don't go into that detail, we'll never be able to find an answer that will there be peace in Afghanistan. But my take on it, there is no peace coming in Afghanistan with Taliban. It shall remain in turmoil. There won't be any regional dialogue on it because the regional players are still in a competing framework. The global powers are not interested because of the global environment. So therefore, how Pakistan should look towards Taliban and its regime, and what should be our approach? Here I am lost, because so far with our linear policy, we are not moving forward. If you'd like to make any comment on it, I would surely like to have that, because to me, the peace looks very, very elusive, and this turmoil will keep haunting Pakistan. And for me, Pakistan is dear because it's my sons, our young people who will keep dying. There is no light at the end of the tunnel.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saab. I believe there is some light at the end of the tunnel. But depends on what the Taliban are doing and what the regional countries and what the international community is doing. It will depend not only on Taliban, but also the regional countries and the international community. And I believe that if international community and regional countries are able to exert pressure on Taliban, they will change. And if the Taliban are able to change, then things will change in Afghanistan as well. Thank you.
So just a quick comment. I think it's probably the most important question right now is not just is there light at the end of the tunnel, but if we need to find that light, what is the road taken? To me, the most, I guess the key point of this is that is the Taliban government legitimate in the sense that their own population finds them legitimate? I don't know this.
This is a key question.
Yeah, and I think the point here is that the republic was not legitimate. It didn't have the broad backup from it, and to be more blunt, the Afghan Republic during the 20 years was an artificial construction made up of foreign assistance mostly and U.S. military support. And there's a very big difference between that and the Taliban government we have today. So to me, if the current government needs to be sustainable, if there's light, I mean, whether you like them or not, whether you agree with their policies or not, it is whether they can continue to or increase support from the population. And a key component to that, as I see it, is whether they can actually gain some sort of economic interdependency with the world, whether they can actually get growth to happen. And again, I'm not saying that I agree with the Taliban policies here, that I want them to consolidate power, but peace in Afghanistan is elusive, but it is more legitimate now than it was during the Republic.
Please give him mic.
Just a quick question that actually emerged after your explanation. I just wondered which country in the world have actually seen a legitimate government after fighting 40 years of war. I couldn't recollect any in this world. You need some kind of arrangement that could give immediate stability. And that I feel, what I could gather from the presentations here, I think that has been fairly provided there. Second, I've got this book in a long time that talks of peace in Afghanistan. Can we calculate how many books were written to actually propagate war in Afghanistan? I think there were a couple of 100 books coming up every month. But probably this might be a very rare book that talks of peace in Afghanistan. You said in your comment there that people have forgotten Afghanistan. And writing this book, or deciding to write this book, I think great tribute to our Danish friends who really took up this courage to be part of writing this book. I was just wondering, how soon will people in Europe forget Ukraine? Once that war will end, people will forget them, as we have forgotten Afghanistan. Those in the West, 48 odd countries participated without question in actually fighting that extended war for over 20 years. And how many are there to actually play a role in building peace in Afghanistan? I couldn't find any. This is a very humble effort for which you deserve a credit, the Danish team. I wish at least 22 out of those, 24 out of those, 50% out of those countries could have played a role in building peace in Afghanistan. Then a question maybe, could you really say the Afghanistan today is better, the lot of people living there, or was it better before 9/11? There's a question that probably you could answer. So thank you very much for just brief comment.
What I believe that comparing with the Afghanistan pre 9/11, there is a lot of things that need to be considered. So far as the Taliban, the Afghanistan before 2021, August 2021 might be the better reference point to compare Afghanistan of that time and Afghanistan of today. In terms of security, the Afghanistan has been different from Afghanistan 2021, But in terms of humanitarian and security and the economic situation, the situation is very bad.
If Janasab, you allow me that before 9/11 and after 9/11, so there are the lens from which you actually see things. Afghanistan before 9/11 was a devastated area, very less opportunities. Most of the people, they used to live here in Pakistan, and there was no proper structure in Afghanistan, although Taliban were holding major territory in Afghanistan, but there was no proper centralized government because Northern Alliance was challenging their authority, and there was a war going on throughout that. After 9/11, the war escalated, but there were some other aspects as well. During that time, a lot of money came in Afghanistan, a lot of infrastructure built in Afghanistan. The Kabul is not that city which it was. So there are plus and minuses. Although Afghan population was actually sent to face an experiment of war, and that was a devastating experiment. It was an experiment actually, but some dividends they got, and that is unfortunate that with the war they got. And Afghans are now billionaires, some Afghans, and UAE, and they have invested in, and not in their own country unfortunately, but invested here, invested in Middle East, invested in Europe, but that was the money came to Afghanistan. So there are differences if you see the society and education, especially the girls' education in Afghanistan during last 20 years. That was a remarkable change. And as the Guldad highlighted, the change, with the pace the Afghan society changed, Afghan Taliban had not changed that way. So that is the big change. If we met an Afghan before 9/11 and today, you will see the difference in their thinking approach, their international approach, education. You will find Afghans everywhere in the world participating in different NGOs, different forums. So it's a mix. Thank you. Ask question.
Last question, if we have any. Yes, please. Please. Please give him mic.
Yes, thank you for a very interesting presentation, and huge congratulations on this achievement. I'm Jonas Geil-Kars, assistant professor from the Royal Danish Defence College. We have been talking about legitimacy here. What about state capacity? What is the current level of state capacity? If we can talk about the Taliban as a government, well, we have not established fully whether it's legitimate or not, but what is its capacity to do something in Afghan society now and then in the future? I could like to hear you elaborate a bit on that.
I think if we briefly discuss this, I think their capacity is much better than the previous government, because the previous government was totally reliant on the Western funds and support. But we have seen that during last 3 years, they actually managed to sustain, and they have established their revenue generation capacity, eradicated corruption, and this is after 40 or 45 years that entire Afghanistan is under one government, not even a single inch is under control of any militant group. This is a change. So the capacity, comparatively, their capacity is better. And I think if they are properly engaged, their capacity can be engaged to further help the Afghan society. This is my take. Maybe my other authors, colleagues, they can differ.
Yes, I think I very much agree that the state capacity of the Taliban government is, I want to say, surprisingly good. And I say that because, at least in Western academic circles and in Western commentary, when the Taliban took over back in August 21, there was a lot of discussion about Now we will see civil war, we will see instability, we will see the return of what we had back in the 90s leading up to the first Taliban regime. And to many surprise, it did not happen. The Taliban are surprisingly effective state administrators. Again, without endorsing their policy, because I definitely do not agree with that, but they have been competent in getting the taxation systems to work effectively, to managing international relations, and managing, and then especially managing the security apparatus, with the intelligence service being far more effective than the previous governments.
Thank you very much for your participation, dear audience. Now we have with us today Ambassador Asif Durrani, Pakistan's former special representative for Afghanistan, our chief guest for today's ceremony. I would like to request him to please come on the stage and give his keynote address. Sir, please.
Thank you, General Saad Khatak, authors of the book, Abdullah Khan Guldas Sahab, James Westerland Mathewson. I'm grateful for this honor, and really it was a pleasure reading this book. And for me, these 6 chapters, in fact, give you a correct perspective as per the research methodology, whether quantitative or qualitative. Being a researcher myself now for the past almost 6 years, I have enjoyed different references used, and more importantly, on the inception of Taliban, how they came into being and then how they have worked. We can draw different conclusions about the evolution of the Taliban, but there's one fact, and that is that they belong to the Afghan society. And it's an ultra-conservative society, whether we like it or not. Then another fact is that Afghanistan never saw peace in its entire history except for 4 decades of Zahir Shah. Not before, not afterwards. Afterwards, we all know, at least for the past 45 years, we see how Afghanistan is coming up. There hasn't been a dull moment as far as chaos in that country is concerned. And then, especially with regard to the militant groups operating in Afghanistan, it's a treasure trove. Definitely those researchers who are interested in Afghanistan and different militant groups or terrorist groups which are operating in that country, they'll benefit a lot. And similarly, with regard to the security situation in Chapter 4, I'm really impressed with the excellent data of a year before the fall of Kabul and a year after. And now it's more than 3 years that Taliban are ruling the country. There are many pluses and there are some minuses. No doubt there's peace. One reason of the peace is because earlier, during the Republic time, the peace was disturbed by the Taliban. And now they are in power, so there's more peace. So we have to be realistic. Earlier there were suicide bombings. Now it's not suicide bombings from the Taliban side. It may be ISKP, mostly ISKP. Earlier they had the shelter here in Pakistan. Their theological cousins, TTP, they were there very much. And now it's the payback time for the Afghan Taliban vis-a-vis TTP. So that's how we are seeing the Pashtunwali working, whether we like it or not, but it's a fact of life. And when we talk about Afghanistan and international community, I can talk about Pakistan-Afghan relationship during Taliban's regime. But more importantly, Ambassador Ayaz Wazir and I fully endorse that if you ignore Afghanistan, if you don't come to Afghanistan, Afghanistan will come to you. We saw that in 9/11. Afghanistan was ignored, so Al-Qaeda could gain its roots, and what we know is all history. I happened to be in New York when 9/11 happened. I had freshly reached New York from Tehran, from my posting to New York. I saw America changing. I reached 3 months before 9/11. I could go up to the tarmac of the JFK before 9/11, but afterwards you were stripped. You were stripped, searched, and there was no concession for anyone. So that's the America you saw changing. That's the America you saw changing, that the French permanent representative, while adopting Resolution 1373 under Chapter 7, said, today we are all Americans. So we just can't talk about only Taliban and their non-compromising attitude, in fact, cost Afghanistan. It's besides the point that the United States spent $2.6 trillion to replace Taliban with Taliban after 2 decades. That's besides, it's another fact of life. But the issue with Afghanistan is it's Afghan people are the issue. Unless Afghans, they unite their ranks, no one can bring stability to that land. And that's the underlying point to your question. So it is up to the Afghans. I and you cannot bring stability to Afghanistan. And if you expand our argument to regional level or to international level, it won't happen. Reason is that Afghanistan has been, and I'm using the harsh word, Afghanistan has been sold by its own people. Now, those warlords, those so-called leaders, they are sitting in the cool confines out of Afghanistan. And what we see is the poverty which, with the advent of 2.0 of the Taliban, has touched 97%, out of which 52% of Afghans are actually dependent on international humanitarian assistance. If we don't engage, again, endorsing Ambassador Ayaz Wazir's argument, if you don't engage the Taliban, then the fear is that this poverty graph is going to grow and very rapidly. And what would be the reason? Pakistan would be the first port of call for the Afghans. They will come here. Then followed by Iran. On other Central Asian states, no, they don't encourage it. And otherwise, we have Afghan Turkmens, Afghan Tajiks, or Afghan Uzbeks, but now culturally they are poles apart. Those countries of Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan don't align themselves with Afghanistan's Turkmens, Tajiks, or Uzbeks. But here, the difference between Pakistan and Afghanistan, their relationship, and Afghanistan's relationship with the rest of the neighbors is that we have got a symbiotic relationship where tribes are actually divided on the border. This is not the situation which Afghanistan faces with its other 5 neighbors, actually divided tribes. And then we want to have academic solutions, even in our policy institutions, is not going to work. President Karzai used to call Pakistan and Afghanistan as Siamese twins. Both can't live without each other. That's a fact of life. We have to live with that, and then we have to actually try to engage with them in a manner that it will also lure them to the modernity. During Republican period, we say of 20 years, girls were being educated in the schools, but 2/3 of the girls did not go to school. Not because there was any restriction, but because of the ultra-conservative society we have in Afghanistan. And then the dilemma is that both on Afghanistan and Pakistan, it's the only border region where we have polio, none else, nowhere. Now it is called Pashtun virus rather than polio virus. So this is the height of ignorance among the people who are, and then you are talking about Taliban that they are harsh. They belong to that society. We have to appreciate that. They belong to that society. So here now, when you talk about theocratic order is actually a monarchical order, where Mullah Heptullah is the final authority. His word is final. Just imagine about the girls' schools, their right to work. It has been vetoed by Mullah Heptullah. No one can dare, while overwhelming majority of the Taliban hierarchy is against the edict. But it is prevalent. The reason is it's theocratic. In any theocratic order, it becomes monarchical. Only difference is that the number one man's children cannot inherit the power. This is the only difference, whether it is in Iran or whether in Afghanistan. There are two Islamic models, and those are monarchical. I leave it to our researchers to delve on this monarchical aspect of governance. So this is very important, we should understand. But since I have been dealing with them, they are amenable to suggestions provided that those suggestions do not expose them to the world as if they are accepting your suggestions. So you have to convince them in private, whether it is education. While the girls cannot be educated inside Afghanistan beyond 6th standard, but there is a realization that what they are going to do after 10 or 20 years, if there are no lady doctors, to whom their women folk will be consulting if they are sick. There is a realization. Another important aspect is that women are still working in many ministries. I traveled 3-4 times to Kabul during the past 1 year. In Calm Air, you have air hostesses also. And in some of the restaurants, the girls were serving. I invite our, I don't know, Ambassador Pur is not here. He is, he has dealt Afghanistan for a long period. So some of the restaurants where the girls are serving. So it's a mixed package. When it comes to urban Afghanistan, especially Kabul, it is different. Taliban attitude is also different. But in the rest of the country, they are comfortable because the society is conservative. No, it's a dilemma. I'm not defending that what they are doing is good or not. Freedom of choice should be available with the people, not the one man. And someone said they have occupied the country. So that was the business in the town. They were removed by force, so they came by force. And they are a reality, and we all now accept that there is less corruption. The narcotics, poppy cultivation is almost nil now. So it should go to the benefit of the people, especially the West, where it was almost $50 billion business going from Afghanistan. I'm not saying it. UNODC's 2010 and 11 reports are suggesting that. So if they can control it, and tomorrow if they become disgusted and disappointed, so they can revert to growing poppy. So engagement is a must, even if politically we may not agree with them. But you cannot ignore Afghanistan. If you ignore Afghanistan, If you don't come to Afghanistan, Afghanistan will come to you in the form of another 9/11. Already ISKPs are very much there. They have had their operations, many operations in Pakistan, but they had their suicide attacks in Iran, in Uzbekistan, in Tajikistan, and then last one was very fatal in Moscow. So if they can reach to Moscow, to Tehran, so they can reach any other capital. Don't forget it. So these are certain ground realities we have to be aware of. And for that, Pakistan becomes more concerned is because if anything happens, the immediate impact comes to Pakistan than any other immediate neighbor of Afghanistan. These are the ground realities, so I have to emphasize more on this aspect. I don't agree that Taliban are the last bet. If you look at Afghanistan and the only 4 decades of peace in Afghanistan of Zahir Shah's period. So it is actually victor or vanquished psyche which prevails in that country, and they live in 17th or 18th century as far as political development is concerned. So either you are a victor or you are a vanquished. This had happened right from first Afghan war to second Afghan war. We can claim that they were victors, Afghans were victors, but what about the war of attrition which the British imposed upon Afghanistan throughout? And then they were the wheelers, they were the movers and shakers of all the monarchies inside Afghanistan. Soviets, they were not militarily defeated. They imploded because of the economic liabilities they had in Europe, they had in Eastern Europe, in Africa, in Latin America, in Far East. So they imploded. Yeah, President Trump asked his journalists, can we win the war? They said no. He said, why are we wasting our blood and treasure? Withdraw the troops. And therefore, in the United States, there was a bipartisan support as far as withdrawing from Afghanistan is concerned, because it had become a $50 billion per annum liability for the Americans in Afghanistan without getting desired results, especially after they captured and killed Osama bin Laden. So therefore, when you look at the chronological order, from 2011, they negotiated with the Taliban first time, the word reconciliation appeared. And then within 2 years, they agreed to allow the Taliban to open their political office in Doha. And from 2013 till 2018, Americans and Taliban had their secret negotiations, which ultimately they made it public in 2018, and it culminated on 29th February 2020 in the form of Doha Agreement. So there, Americans did not want to stay there. And it had a bipartisan support, I say it, because when Trump, he signed the agreement, but it was implemented by President Biden. So that's how, on 15th August 2021, Taliban came, and they came under an agreement. Whether we like it or not, they came under an agreement. Both parties shook hands. So from that aspect, Taliban have a legitimacy. Because Americans went to Afghanistan under Resolution 1368 and 1373 of the UN Security Council under Chapter 7, which means you have to enforce those resolutions. And that was also incumbent upon Pakistan or all the countries of the world to implement those resolutions. Even those resolutions are still open. Some of my Taliban interlocutors, they were complaining that Pakistan has allowed over-the-horizon attacks when Aman al-Zawahiri was killed. I said, you better read Resolution 1368 and 1373. Those are still open and under Chapter 7. So apart from academics, it's the actual politics on ground which has to be taken into account in our research work and in our discussions when we talk about Afghanistan. So engagement is a must because Afghan Taliban enjoy legitimacy under Doha Agreement. Because none of the countries have opposed Doha Agreement. None whatsoever. So it is incumbent upon the international community, whatever way they want to engage with Afghanistan. Already they are engaging. 17 embassies are already present in Kabul. Around 24 have their contacts in Doha. But in the name of human rights, so should we all de-recognize Israel? Today, what is happening? We have to draw certain distinctions. What is human rights? Where are we? Yes, might is right. And it's the victor who writes the history, and that's how the victors of the 21st century have written the history. But at the same time, only the wearer knows where the shoe pinches. So in this case, I'm the wearer of the shoe. So we are facing the problem. And therefore, I'm one of the staunchest supporter of regional approaches because the US and the West, in their scheme of things, on a scale of 1 to 10, Afghanistan is only 2 as far as engaging Afghanistan is concerned. It's just, and I'm quoting it, I'll not name the countries, but this is from those countries who have told me personally. Reason, their hands are full now in Ukraine and now Palestinian genocide. So why would they give? So therefore, it is all the more necessary for the immediate neighbors of Afghanistan to adopt a regional approach, which is why the Moscow format has come into play. It is still in the initial stages, but it has been in existence since 2017. United States used to be the part of Moscow format, but it withdrew in 2022 after the invasion, Ukraine invasion. And then the kitchen cabinet used to be Troika Plus, in which Pakistan, US, China, and Russia were the members. Now we have a quad in which 4 countries, Pakistan, Russia, Iran, and China, they are the members of this Moscow format, and these are immediate neighbors. Russia is immediate neighbor because of the 3 Central Asian states to which Russia provides security. Russia is a net security provider to Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan. So it is, and then Afghanistan, whatever subsistence level Afghanistan and today's Afghanistan is maintained is because of the immediate neighbors and Russia, that through currency swap and through barter trade, this Afghanistan is still sustaining, but at the subsistence level. If hadn't this been the case, I can assure you, whole of Afghanistan would have collapsed and gone somewhere else. And unfortunately, Taliban 1.0 and 2.0 is synonymous with poverty. We may say there is less corruption. We may say that they have improved tax collection, customs duties, but they are at the subsistence level. unfortunately, which I gave you the statistics, 97 poverty, 97% is the poverty, overall poverty, but out of which 52%, i.e. around 29 million people, 19 million people, they are dependent on international assistance. So we have to engage with them. First, if the international community does not engage, regional countries should, for their own sake, they should engage. And mind you, if we disengage with the Taliban, the ISKP, TTP, ETIM, IMUs, and others, over a dozen terrorist organizations, they will have the field day, ultimately. So sorry I took a long period, but I really enjoyed the book. And I congratulate the authors and General Khattak to your leadership that this pioneering work, one of the pioneering work, which in fact should encourage the researchers to do more because this data which you have collected is really impressive, and it should in fact serve as a building block for further in furthering research and bringing quality. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your insightful words. With this, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached to a very crucial point of book launch ceremony, that is to present book to our special guest. I would request Major General Muhammad Saad Khattak, Chairman, Pakistan Institute for Conflict and Security Studies, to please do the honors. I would request Ambassador of Finland to Pakistan, His Excellency Ambassador Hanu Ripati, to please have his copy of signed off. I would request Managing Director, Pakistan Institute for Conflict and Security Studies, Mr. Abdullah Khan, to please come on the stage for vote of thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, generally the book launch is not so, entertaining kind of an event and so boring presentations, but still I'm really thankful that you stayed with us, glued to your seats, which seems to be not very much comfortable, and you all were here for more than 2 hours, and really it is immense pleasure for us and honor for us that you all gave time to us. For vote of thanks, I have thanked you, but it will be not complete if I don't thank my team picks, the organizers, and some of the names: Shumaila Khan, Uruj Fatma, Safwan Abdullah, Ms. Sumaira, Arfa Mahmood, Shahir Ahmed. Although they are seems to be disappeared, or they are here. Okay, you are not like the ambassadors of Bosnia. Okay, and the diplomatic community, you always respond to our requests whenever we send an invitation. You respond. Thank you so very much to you as well, and thanks to the team of Islamabad Club who made these arrangements. And thank you to Royal Danish Defence College for partnering with us with such a valuable contribution to the research field. I would say it would have not been possible if Royal Danish Defence College did not step in to this project. It was actually a very important thing, and I hope that and one important thing, I was just telling Jens that I have just realized that we have done a very good job. So and ladies and gentlemen, while it is an honor for us to launch a book, first complete book launched by PICS, but at the same time, today is the 10th anniversary of PICS. PICS was exactly launched 10 years ago And at that time, our first chairman was late Akram Zaki Saab. He had departed from this world in 2017. And under his leadership, we started this. And then in 2016, we got General Saad Khatak. And after his demise of Ambassador Zaki, we are under his leadership and we are trying our level best to make a point. We hold very less events, but more focus on field research and data analysis. You all may know about the PICS militancy database that we provide periodicals, weekly and monthly security assessment reports, annual reports. Often you see our reports in the media. We are, alhamdulillah, we have become the most quoted think tank in Pakistan when it comes to security and conflict. And all this is possible because of the research team which PICS has, and thanks to them as well. So this is the brief thank you note.